What's up, boys and girls? Welcome to episode number 18, the Go Figure podcast. The show is back and better than ever. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk always says that, when you're creating content, sometimes it's good to document the journey. And so today I thought it'd be fun if we kind of documented a little bit of our journey in terms of what we're doing and creating pitch decks. And so we're going to be, topic number one is our money topic, and we're going to be talking about 5 steps to making pitch decks like Elon Musk. And so, actually Ty and I are working on pitch decks. For years, we've helped thousands of business owners get financing and funding, our own businesses too, real estate, etc. And now we are building a fintech, and so you kind of have to go a different route and a little bit of the venture capital route. And Ty, you and I have been working on this pitch deck. What's been your feeling? I mean, it's been kind of difficult, right?
Yeah. Less is more is a very, very tricky thing to accomplish on a pitch deck, for sure.
Because it has to be short, concise. Anyway, we're going to dive into that and, some of the ways to make a pitch deck successful. So if you're trying to build that company that can be, a really big growth company and, 100, 200,000 isn't enough. You're actually going to need to raise a lot more money than that. And you've got proof of concept. You've got experience. So we're going to talk about that. That's our money topic. What's next?
Yeah, our mindset piece. We're going to talk about, obviously hard work is important, but hard work alone will not make you rich.
And that's from a very interesting video made by Alex Hormozy. I've been doing a deep dive of a lot of his content, books, and programs. Very successful entrepreneur, $100 million exit with 3 or 4 of his companies. And so I really, love what he teaches. So we're going to dive into that because you always hear, you got to work hard, you got to work 100 hours a week. And then it's like, no, you got to work smart. And then at some point you got to put those together. So we'll chat about that. And then in our freedom segment, it's where are the top places to start a business in these United States, not even just from a state perspective, but an actual city perspective. Sometimes it makes a big difference. You're actually more likely to succeed with a business in certain cities versus and compared to others. So we're going to dive into kind of the top 10 cities and then the top 10 worst cities to start a business in these United States.
Absolutely. And then our family listeners out there, right? Those of you that have children, we're going to talk about what you actually should be teaching your children about money and credit and finances because they're not going to learn it anywhere else.
Yep, they're still not teaching us this in school, so you gotta be able to put this information together, or your kids are not going to get it. Most of our kids learn finance from their parents, and if your parents don't know it, then that can be very difficult. And so that's where we're out there trying to make that part of our journey, part of our commitment to help people, especially business owners, to get their money, their finances right. That's why we are launching this My Figures app and making it into a big fintech. And then our final topic will be our sports topic, just kind of a fun one. And, assuming that our schedule stays on track, we will be choosing who's going to win the Super Bowl, making our Super Bowl picks. That's going to be a tough game to pick on Thursday. Actually, might have to do it Friday because I think we have lunch with Isaac on Thursday. So probably be a Friday Super Bowl pick episode. And so we're going to talk about the Pro Bowl, the good, the bad, and the ugly that was the first flag football Pro Bowl in the history of Pro Bowls, which was, it had its good things, bad things. Maybe there was even more contact in this Pro Bowl with the flag football versus regular, full pads that they've been playing the last decade where there's been zero contact. So that'll be interesting to talk about that. Well, that's what we got on tap for you guys today. So let's jump into episode number 18, our money topic, 5 steps to making pitch decks like Elon Musk. This is, I believe, an Inc. story. This is an Inc. story. It says, 5 steps to making pitches like Elon Musk. The Tesla and SpaceX founder manages to leave his audiences cheering after each pitch idea he makes. The secret all boils down to these simple 5 steps. So step number 1, according to this article, is number 1, name your enemy. Identify kind of the problem, the pain points. What's the big issue that your product or service is going to address and solve? So that was number 1. Number 2, it says why now is the time to fix it versus what makes now the right time and the market's ready for your product or solution. Number 3, paint a picture of the promised land. I feel like it's almost like the sales process. Like, you teach the sales secrets process to our community. It's almost kind of like that. And then how will you overcome obstacles? And then last but not least, win them over with evidence, client stories, your story. So we've been in the trenches. We're putting together this pitch deck. We need to raise, I don't know, $2 or $3 million here for some developers, maybe some additional sales processes and people in the My Figures build out this fintech app that we've got it live, and we need to add some components to it. So when you're naming your enemy, what do you think? What comes to mind? And thinking to our own pitch deck that we're putting together, like, what does it mean to really name your enemy, identify the problem, like the pain points? How's the best way you think to identify that?
Yeah, as you were saying these things, that's literally what came to mind, Leo. The sales training that we provide for all of our reps is you start with the pain, right? Name your enemy, like you said. You get into urgency, which literally right here, why now is the time to fix it, and then you present the solution, which is paint the picture.
The promised land.
So, I mean, that literally is a sales cycle, a sales process put into a pitch deck. And starting out with step one, name your enemy, find that pain point. Your enemy is just another way of saying your competitors. Who in your space is going to be competing with you? Who do you need to overcome and beat and take over to win that market share? And it's very, very important, not that your enemy should be your sole motivator, but having that enemy is a very, very important step of building a business and gaining that success and having something to reach for. I think it's crucial. It's just like a rival in sports.
It's almost like you're finding this missing link, this missing solution in the market. So, for example, with what we do for years, clients, small business owners, we get them loans, lines of credit, we get them all these different accounts. They've got their bank accounts, they've got their investments, they're logging to 30 websites, and they're like, wow, how am I going to manage this? This is too confusing. And so we heard this for years. We're like, let's create an app where they can log in and it's all connected, one place, not 30 different websites. And, you've got different competitors out there like a Mint or a Truebill that have some similarities. Maybe Personal Capital, I think, is another one. But they aren't necessarily put together for a small business owner to manage the business. It's more of a personal consumer type thing. But that's kind of one thing. But then we realize, well, that solves that problem, yes, but it's not enough. And then you start looking at another problem that entrepreneurs have, and that's I don't know if I'm actually profitable. And in our previous business, like, things were so discombobulated. I had no idea if we were making money, losing money, and it soon turned out we were losing money. And now when we started this business, the first thing we did was we wanted to bring your dad in, who's been a CPA for 30 years, break this down for us. I want to be profitable. And so he was very helpful in putting that together, and I really did a deep dive. But the majority of small business owners, QuickBooks is very complicated. And so that's another part where, oh, man, I wish I had something simple, automated, that was intuitive and knew, hey, you're going to miss this and count this as income when it's actually not, or you're going to count this as an expense when it's actually not. And so if you had something like that, that would kind of solve the problem. So I'm just trying to give case study examples of this is where you present, hey, here's the problem, and here's what the market currently is not solving for this. We're going to solve that problem, and especially gig workers.
Yeah, absolutely. Gig workers, it's huge. And Leo, the thing with the pain question is the initial response you get is never the actual pain. That's what people need to realize in pitch decks, in sales, whatever it may be. If I ask my clients, well, why are you worried about getting 4 different credit cards? They may say, well, I don't want to have to log in 4 different places. If I took that as the pain and moved forward with it, I am totally wrong. I am off base. So the follow-up question of, well, why don't you want to log into 4 different places? Well, then I have to remember 4 different passwords. Guess what? That's still not the pain. The pain is I'll forget my passwords. Someone will steal my passwords. They'll get into my accounts. They'll steal my information. They'll steal my data. I'll forget to make a payment. So asking those probing questions, digging and digging and digging is how you're going to get to the pain. And that's something that we've learned in developing this pitch deck. Having all your accounts in one spot isn't the solution. Giving people the peace of mind is what they actually want. Giving them the ability to see everything and feel confident and comfortable with all of their accounts in one location, that's the pain point. That's what we're solving here, not the Well, it's going to take a little bit too long to log in 4 different places.
So it almost always, how often would you say as you dig deeper into the real pain point that it's actually connected to something more emotional versus logical?
99% of the time.
Right. And so I'm like, I don't want to have to log in all these accounts. But really, in the back of my mind, what I'm really scared of, what I'm really anxious about is, what if I miss something? What if I miss a payment? What if somebody hacks the account? I don't even know that they hacked the account, right?
Yeah.
What if I get a call Sunday morning from Venmo and some hacker stole $2,000 from my wife's Venmo account, which, by the way, that did happen on Sunday. But, that's really what people are. It's the emotional. And so getting down to that and solving that worry, that's what really solves the problem then.
Exactly. Someone calls in and says, Ty, I need $20,000 so I can start a side hustle on Amazon. Great. Why do you want to start a side hustle? Oh, I need to make a little extra money. And I can run with that and say, they want to make a little extra money. That's their pain. Or
That's
I can
not
say,
the
why do you need a little bit of extra money? Well, things are getting a little bit tight. Well, what do you mean? My son's turning 16. I can't afford to get him a car, or I can't afford to get the groceries that we need. Okay, now you've got the real pain, and you can actually help that person and impact that person. But I need a little extra money isn't going to get you anywhere.
No, and I want my son to be proud of me. I want him to, see me succeeding in a business, doing more than just this job that I don't love. And that's a why. And so getting down to that why is super important. So let's talk about painting the picture of the promised land, the solution and the vision. And I almost feel like you should share part of like the sunglasses analogy and how you present that. Because Ty, we have this community where we teach people how to launch funding businesses, and we teach coaches and consultants and so forth. And so one of the classes we teach is our sales secrets class, and Ty teaches that class. And painting that vision of the better life you're going to have with the product or service, solving that emotional problem for you is very important.
Yeah, it's extremely important. And like you said, if those first 2 steps aren't handled, it's useless. But if you felt the pain and the urgency is developed, now you're actually ready to change. And if someone can paint the perfect picture of what the solution is to this pain and why it has to happen right now, it's the easiest sell in the world. And so with the sunglass analogy, kind of similar situation. It sounds silly, but I got off a flight in Phoenix, and it was extremely bright. It was a gloomy day in Utah. Didn't think anything of it. Get off the flight in Phoenix, and bam, the sun is on me, hitting me like you wouldn't believe. And it hurt. Like I was squinting. I didn't even realize this was a big deal, and end up at a sunglass hut, which I had never had expensive sunglasses before. I didn't really care about that. And I sit down, and the sales rep comes and talks to me and says, did you ever think about what the sunglasses are actually doing? Do you think about how you look in sunglasses? It starts asking me all of these questions and made me realize, like, you know what, I do actually want nice sunglasses. I do actually want to make these changes. And better yet, because there's a buy one, get one half off, I ended up getting 2 very expensive pairs of sunglasses because they talked about my pain. They talked about the urgency. Can you imagine going out and driving in Phoenix with sunglasses that don't actually work with your kids in the back seat? And then they painted that picture of what it's going to do, and I walked away with 2 pairs of expensive sunglasses. Like it's
and then they ask you, well, hey, how well do you think these $10 sunglasses are actually protecting your eyes? And you're like, oh, yeah, my eyes are kind of important. Maybe I should invest in better protection. That's what a great salesperson does, is they ask about what your life's like and why you would choose something so inferior. And someone who's good at that will present that in their pitch deck.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you paint that promised land, and then you show, okay, great. Well, this is the potential promised land. Now, what are the actual obstacles? Well, I've got to be profitable. I've got to distribute it. What is my marketing plan? Do I have a good leadership team behind this business? Because ideas are a dime a dozen, but execution is everything. And then win them over with evidence. And, this is kind of where you have maybe one of those emotional stories where it's like, for example, my previous business, I never knew if I was profitable, and it turned out I was bleeding money. And when I put these rules into place and I knew where I stood from a profit and loss standpoint. It made all the difference when I could manage all my money accounts in one place. My net worth started to grow from negative to multiple millions of dollars. And so when you have those stories, and then even more powerful stories of clients you've helped showing that your product or service has worked, that's that proof of concept that Damon John talks about in Shark Tank. And when you have a proof of concept, now you have an opportunity to scale it because your product or service, brings that type of solution. And where what's unique about what we've done is we've done it from a service standpoint, and now we're trying to translate what we've done from a service standpoint into an actual, digital online product to help people get their money right, get their financing right, manage their profit and loss cash flow, and build their net worth. And so it's been an interesting journey. I'm sure it will only get more interesting as time goes by.
Yeah, I was talking to one of our advisors last night as I was working on this pitch deck, and one thing that he said to me that really made a lot of sense, and it's something so basic, but ultimately said, look, with a pitch deck, you're not trying to put everything out there. You don't want to give them the farm. What you're trying to do is get just enough out there to spark a conversation, to get an investor to start asking questions so that you can then answer and give them what they want to hear. It is just like sales, but you have time to create this perfect sales pitch. Sorry if this is too much, but in sales, back one of my very first sales trainers ever said, great salespeople you're a stripper, not a prostitute.
Yes, 100%.
And it's the same thing with the pitch deck. You've got to spark the conversation, but not give them way too much.
Yeah, if you give them too much, then they feel like, I already know it, it's not going to work, or they have their own idea. But if it's curiosity-based, let me arouse your curiosity with this potential solution to this big problem, but I'm not going to give you all the details until you dig deeper in the process where I can actually show you how it's going to work. And it's almost like in marketing, like when we build out these sales funnels, I'll have a landing page, and the headline is everything. If the headline arouses your curiosity and you want to find out more, and it's like, how the number one way business coaches, consultants, trainers are, scaling their business to 7 figures, but you don't give them all the details, right? But now you're like, well, I wonder what that number one way is. This guy, he probably has no idea, but I'm curious. And it's almost like I want to prove him wrong. And then you go down the rabbit hole and you're like, he makes a good point, or she makes a good point, and that's a good idea. And even though this isn't the best example, the other thing I'll say in terms of a story that really provides evidence is a failed, disgraced entrepreneur. Was it Elizabeth Theranos? Was that her name?
Yeah.
No, her name.
No.
Her name was Holmes. Is that what it was?
Oh man.
Anyway, the Theranos founder. She was super charismatic, and she had this story about her uncle that got cancer, didn't know he had it, was stage 4, and he passed away. And so she told this story, wow, if he'd have had my little blood test thing, we would have known immediately that he had cancer. We would have saved his life. And so she told this story thousands of times, and that one little story convinced people to put up $1 billion in a product that never existed, and it never did exist. But that's how powerful now. Of course, you would never do that. You would create a real product that actually does exist and be honest with your investors and people. But that's how powerful a great story. And then obviously, was when Steve Jobs, he would come out every year and there's 1,000 songs in this iPod device, and people are like, what? They got 1,000 songs in your pocket? That was curiosity. Wait, how you can't get 1,000? So that's curiosity based. Or, you're going to be able to watch video on this little phone device. That people had never seen that before. And so then all this, that's what creates curiosity, leads to investors, clients wanting to get to the next step. But if you try to explain everything, then you get into mumbo jumbo and technical stuff that people don't understand and they tune out. But if you can make it simple and get their attention, sell the sizzle, be the stripper, not the prostitute, you're going to be much more successful with your pitch deck.
Can already see that. Our YouTube short in this section is stripper, not prostitute.
Stripper, not prostitute.
Like, what's going
Casey, stripper, not prostitute.
7 figures has changed. No, that'll be great. All right.
Okay, time for our mindset segment. Hard work alone will not make you rich. This was a video I was watching from Alex Hormozy the other day. Very interesting video. And, I think about most subjects, there's 2 sides to most subjects. oh, don't work hard, work smarter. And so then you'll see people on Instagram, I'm working smarter, congratulations. And I remember Gary Vaynerchuk looked at some guy and he's like, great, mother bleeper, you work harder, I'm going to work hard and smarter. Now what are you going to do? So there's this idea, and one statement isn't necessarily completely right. But if you're not working smarter and harder, that's a problem. And I've really come to the realization that if you aren't doing high leverage activities, then that's where you're going to have slow growth in your business. So let's break this down. So here's the main points. Hard work is vital, but does the 30-year hardworking janitor or landscaper, reminds me of a guy who used to do landscaping at BYU for a minute there.
Yeah.
But so you work at that job really hard, and you're a hard worker, and you're a good person, and you got values and principles, and that's awesome, but you're not going to get ahead financially. You can work as hard as you want. They might have very small increases, and unless you're able to save a lot of money and invest it in a business or real estate to actually provide financial independence, that person is never going to be wealthy, never going to have freedom. They're not going to be able to travel. They're not going to be able to provide the life they want to for their family. A lot of you listening or watching, like maybe you've been in that boat. I've been in that boat, and that's what drove me to take action. But so hard work alone is not going to get us there. And according to Alex, he's saying, hey, yeah, it's important, but work has little to do with the highest levels of the game. So, for example, he'll say, well, hey, Warren Buffett, I mean, he makes 2 decisions a year. He reads for 5 or 6 hours a day. He goes to McDonald's. He drinks his Coke because he's invested in both. I don't know how he's still living into his 90s. That's what he does. And but he's not working 100 hours a week, right? He makes a couple of investment decisions. And if he makes 2 good decisions a year, he's really happy. And his growth has just been exponential. So an example of somebody who is doing things at a higher level because he's got leverage. He doesn't have a huge organization, but they manage so much money, that's the leverage. So managing something bigger. Alex says the same hours in the day, you need leverage. So when you think of, working hard versus working smarter, leverage, like what comes to mind of examples of that, or when, hey, I worked hard, but I sort of hit a ceiling. There's only, 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week. I can only do so much. But when I added this piece of leverage, now I could do more. What do you think are some of those examples of leverage that made a real difference in your life and business?
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about this, Leo, I immediately just start thinking of our friend Tyler, who had a father-in-law who came here from, I believe, was it Ecuador? I can't remember. I think Ecuador,
South America.
And he was doing construction, and always on a job, nonstop, work, and just barely scrapes by, like just barely paying the bills. Tyler comes in and says, you know what are you doing? You have all this expertise. You have all these clients. What do you say we hire 10 people, take on more jobs, meaning you don't have to work as much. You can use your expertise and go over and help at different projects, little bits at a time. And they now are doing well over I think they did almost $2 million in revenue last year, as opposed to $200,000 on this guy just grinding and coming home exhausted every single day. And it's just going out and leveraging, having employees, right? Learning the business side of how this works. We had someone commenting on a YouTube video of ours, I think it was our last show, saying, yeah, I'm working 10 to 13 hours a day. Yeah. I'm not getting by. I'm excited to have a conversation with this individual and say, well, how many jobs are you turning away because you're the only person working on this job versus going out and hiring and getting employees? And we've experienced that. Sometimes it's scary to hire, but if you do it the right way, that's the only way you're going to actually grow.
So the number one way that you can leverage to begin as a small business owner or entrepreneur is you have to convert from being a solopreneur into an actual entrepreneur. If you're a solopreneur, you're really good at doing the technical thing that you're really good at. So when we first started, you were at these events across the country, bringing in clients, doing the initial sales work. I was back in my home office, doing the actual funding work, doing the fulfillment. So you were the sales, I was the fulfillment. And the two of us could bust our butt and work 60, 70 hours a week, and we might both cap out our incomes at $150,000, $200,000 a year because There's only 100, there's only two of us. There's only 168 hours a week. But if you can take that specialized knowledge and now create a team, employees, and have them do those jobs and break that process down, and they only do one part of the process and another does another part of the process. It reminds me of Henry Ford when he came up with the assembly line. He had, instead of one person trying to do 5 or 10 things, he had one person doing one thing, and he was able to get out so many more cars and make massive, where he might make, a 10% profit on each car. Now he had thousands of cars being made instead of 100 cars a month. And that changed everything. So it's the same thing. Whatever it is you do in your business, maybe you're an accountant, maybe you're a marketer, maybe you're a chef, whatever it is, and you can do one thing really good, but if you can teach others to do that thing and then manage and grow that business, and now multiple people are doing it, leveraging people is a great way to grow your business. And now instead of you working in the business always, you can work on the business. And so if you don't have leverage of building an organization, a team, then you go on vacation, you stop making money, right? You get sick, you stop making money. You don't work 80 hours a week, you lose a few clients. But when you have a team in a business organization, that's one way to leverage. Let's look at some other ones. So Alex talks about volume of activity versus leverage of activity. So again, if it's just you and I doing the work, we hit a ceiling, but if we have 25 people doing the work, now we can help a lot more people. We can create a much more profitable business. So that's the next thing. And so basically what he asks is, what are the highest leverage activities you can do in your business? And so for us, for example, it's even more higher leverage than just people. For example, we can do marketing and go out and find one client at a time that needs financing. Maybe you're a business coach. You can do marketing and bring one person in at a time who can become a client. But what if you could find a strategic partner who already has 100 of your clients coming in every single month to their business, and if you can provide a benefit to that person, they would send all your business every single month. And so that's, for us, it's like, well, what if we find that accountant who already has 1,000 of our potential clients who need financing, he or she can send those in. And so instead of looking for one person who needs funding, what if I look for 100 accountants who have 1,000 clients each to send in? And so if you can create that type of leverage in your business, and we just had a guy on the podcast, the Seven Figures Club podcast last week. He's had 8 exits, and he talked about that. And he has this book called Viral Something, where basically the action you take leads to more clients versus just helping one client.
Yeah, that's a great example, what you just used there, Leo. Like, when we talk about hard work, we could get a list of business owners. We could get in the yellow pages and just start cold calling and grind and work so hard. And maybe after 2 weeks, we only get maybe 5 clients. Or we go out and we find, like you said, a referral partner, someone that already has our clients and has our leads. Yes, now we're still going to work extremely hard, but we're going to do that significantly more effectively and efficiently. And I think a lot of that is determining what works for you beforehand, finding your limitations, finding your boundaries before you decide to really engage in that hard work, right? It's like if I decide at this point in my life, I want to be a defensive lineman in the NFL, I can work as hard as I want, and that is never, ever, ever going to happen. So you need to figure out what your realistic limitations are and then determine to work hard very, very effectively.
And I'm glad you brought up the football example. It's so appropriate on Super Bowl week. But this is one of the things he talks about. You don't go and hire 10 running backs. In a football team, you have to build out a team. And the very best entrepreneurs are not the quarterback. They're not the star of the team. And that's the problem that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think I've had that problem, where you're like, oh, no one can do this better than me. I have to do this important job. And instead of teaching and training and bringing in great people, and if you bring in the right people, they'll actually be better than you, and that's what you want. You want smarter, better, more capable people that you can bring in and plug into these great opportunities, and they can do that, and you manage it. So the best entrepreneurs are actually coaches. They're not the quarterback. They're not the running back. They're not the center. They're in the back. They're bringing the right people in, putting them in the right positions, making sure that we're bringing in deals, that we're growing the business, that we're living our values and principles as an organization, and that's who's growing the business, is the really good coach, the Bill Belichick of the world, who can put all the pieces in the right spot. He's not actually executing. He's not on the phone with the client. He's not doing all the work, but he's putting people in the right spot, and he's training them and giving them the tools. And the other thing they have is systems and processes.
Yeah.
And so you have been our COO in implementing systems and processes. If you're doing all the phone calls, all the texts, all the emails, and you don't have automation, like what are some examples of automation that you can leverage in your business with systems and processes that people don't really understand?
I mean, I think the most simple one that a lot of companies don't have out there, which shocks me, is following up on contracts, right? You take all of this time, energy, effort, not just generating the lead, not just getting the lead on the calendar, but then pitching that lead, getting to the point where that lead wants to move forward, and you send them a contract. Contract gets buried in the email. The client forgets about it forever, and that happens with a lot of industries. But having a text follow-up series that goes out automatically, because the human element, they'll forget. Your sales reps will forget to follow up on contracts. But guess what? A CRM that says the contract was sent at this exact date and time, if it is unsigned 24 hours from now, send this text. If it remains unsigned 48 hours from now, send this text. 72 hours, send this text. Meanwhile, you're also sending emails. Like, little follow-ups on the contracts, I think, are the quickest way that you can boost your amount of signed deals, boost your revenue, because you're losing a lot of people that just simply don't see the email, or they forget about it, it gets lost, and your reps will not follow up. They may be really good at follow-up, but they're not going to be 100% accurate, whereas a CRM, a phone system with even something as simple as Zapier to create a follow-up thread, I mean, that's going to be the quickest way to boost those signed deals.
So you can be like typing all the text, typing up all the emails and their original things every time, or you have an automated version that plugs in the client's name and it's automatically communicating with them, not once, not twice, but every step and stage of the process. Not only your clients, but your partners, your strategic referral partners who are sending in business. You're keeping them in the flow. Maybe you have a tracking software that they can log into and see how their clients are doing. And that leads me to an affiliate program, right? If you're building an affiliate program, now you've got a number of amazing salespeople out there who are sharing your programs. You're paying them a commission. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is people get started early on and they're super stingy in paying out referral fees and affiliate commissions. And while you want to make sure you're profitable, like, you've got to incentivize people. And if you have a great affiliate program, that is a very powerful way that you can absolutely grow your business and take it to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. That, and the one thing I'd add on top of that, Leo, is the ability to make a payment via text or email.
Oh,
like,
so
it is
important.
2023. If someone has to call you to give you a credit card number to pay your invoice, you're missing out on a lot of money. Make it happen. It's 2023. If you need to schedule a call with us, we'll make it happen for you. There are so many different ways to click a link and pay an invoice. Make it happen.
What about all those people out there? They're like, the only way you can pay me is to send a wire transfer. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? A wire transfer, that's it. I want as many ways to get paid as possible. Venmo, PayPal, credit card, debit card, ACH, wire transfer, Stripe, every single way, QuickBooks, invoices. We've got like 10 different ways that you can make payment to us. You can finance your payment with eFinance. There's so many different ways that you can make payment. And if you don't have easy ways to receive payment, you're losing out on business, period.
Yeah. Anytime someone says, all I take is a wire transfer, red flags start going like crazy. It's like, you scared of a chargeback, or what's
100%.
going on? Or are you just that outdated that you don't know how to accept a credit card? So.
And there's just risk of doing business. But at the end of the day, when you deliver value to people and you've got the reputation and the online reviews, like, you're not afraid. Very few people are going to charge back. And those that do, you'll prove that you did your job on the business and fulfilled exactly what you promised to the letter of the contract, and you'll win 9 out of 10 of those chargebacks. I remember, like, our first 5 or 6 chargebacks, I was all scared about them, and we won every single one of them because we did the job.
Yeah.
So there it is, guys. That was a fun little concept there. The hard work alone will not make you rich, but some high leverage activities that you can do to grow exponentially and not just linear growth, if you will. All right. Time for our next topic, which is the freedom topic. What are the 10 freest places, best places to start a business in the country? Let's look at these. And here's what this is from Lending Tree. This is a Lending Tree article, oddly enough, which is pretty interesting. And so here's the things that they looked at. They looked at how high taxes are in this area of this city and state. What are housing costs like? Is it super expensive? Is the cost of living high? And then do the government policies that are in place there, do they make it hard for you to start a business? Like you have to go through all this red tape, or do they make it easy? So drum roll, please, John. Here we go. Here's our top 10. All right. Number 1.
Wow.
Raleigh, North Carolina, apparently number 1. Number 2, Austin, Texas. Number 3, Charlotte, North Carolina. Number 4, Durham, North Carolina. We got 3 out of the top 4 are from North Carolina, according to Lending Tree's article. Boise, Idaho. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Portland, Oregon. All right, I'm going to be honest. I am shocked about the Portland, Oregon one. I don't know that I agree with that one. I've been there a couple times the last 2 months. It didn't seem like it was super easy, but okay. Salt Lake City, Utah, and Provo, Utah, right up there at the top. Nashville, Tennessee. St. Louis, Missouri. So there we go. There's our top 10. Let's look at that. So Texas, we know there's no state income tax, so that's helpful. We know taxes are pretty reasonable in North Carolina. Idaho, it's easy. You know how much it costs to set up a business entity in California?
I think it's a minimum of $800.
It is. It's like $800 plus a few just to get the little registration done. In the state of Utah, I think we're $75 to get a business entity. So you can spend $75 to get set up in Utah. And then even if you're in California, you're like, I'm going to set my business entity up in Utah, the state of California will still get you. They'll find out, and they'll still charge you that $800 or $1,000. And then they have these bonus taxes in addition to the regular taxes. I remember PBD, one of our mentors, talking about he was in this certain city in somewhere in Southern California, and they're like, oh, we have a bonus tax for the county that wasn't state income tax. So like this extra tax that no one else taxes businesses, and it was going to be like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's when he's like, all right, we're moving out of California. We're moving out of this place. So that was a top 10. What do you think are some of the, what makes these places great? And again, it's tough to know. They're all somewhat different, but what do you think they're doing to make it easier for businesses?
I know with North Carolina, what's interesting, we just had 2 of our, Casey, who I know is watching this, 2 of our team members actually moved to North Carolina, and I was pretty surprised by how affordable real estate is out
Very
there.
affordable.
So I think that's a huge part of it for North Carolina. And North Carolina has a very, very, very strong financial presence. Like Bank of America is headquartered right there. Their fintech is absolutely booming. So I think there's, just by being in business out there, you have a lot of local opportunities to gain access to capital. It's not super overpopulated yet, so there's still a lot of opportunities there. North Carolina doesn't surprise me at all. Austin, Texas, I definitely thought Texas would be on the list. Austin does surprise me a little bit. There are a lot of government handcuffs there. I thought that'd be more of a, Dallas area. I don't know.
I agree. Austin, definitely has a harder, heavier-handed government. I know they were shut down a lot during the last 3 years, so a little surprising there. But I know it is part of Texas. And a lot of people have really flocked there, and the population has increased significantly. Boise, Salt Lake City, Utah, Idaho, not a big surprise. So, I guess the one big common denominator out of all these cities is the states that they're in and the cities they're in are pretty pro-business. They make it easy for the business to get off the ground. They keep taxes within reason, and they don't add a lot of red tape. So not surprising. Again, I think the biggest surprise there, Portland, Oregon. That one does seem surprising to me, but hey, Lending Tree's making this decision, so we'll see. All right, so here's their top 10 worst places to start a business. Number 1, Bakersfield, California. Number 2, Stockton, California. Fresno, California. This is weird. This is all these, I can't imagine them being worse than like Los Angeles and San Francisco, but maybe I'm wrong. Toledo, Ohio. Riverside, California. I had a branch once in Riverside, California in 2015. It wasn't too bad. New Haven, Connecticut, Honolulu, Hawaii, not surprised. Dayton, Ohio, Scranton, Pennsylvania. So for all you that watch The Office out there and Michael Scott, it was tough for them to keep his paper business going all those years. I know our President Joe is from Scranton, Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. Born and raised there, and then, of course, went to Delaware. Wichita, Kansas, number 10. So there we are. There are the top 10 worst places to start a business in 2023. Let's talk about what is it that makes it easier, like just thinking to get off the ground. So you start your business, you got to set up a bank account, you got to get registered with the state. One of the tricky ones you don't always realize is you have to actually get your business license from the city. I'm wondering if maybe if we've renewed our business license. I might have to check on that.
Send in the fire marshal. I've
what
heard
else
that's a huge problem in California. Like, it's not just the cost, the license. It's like literally the way that they send in the fire marshal, and they just nitpick every little
and they take forever.
Exactly. Like, you could be all ready to roll, and it can be 2-3 months before you can even open doors, and that can be tricky in the early phase of business. But I look at this list, and there's two things that come to mind when you look at the bottom 10. Number one is the government making it so hard to actually open your doors, which I see that for all of the California ones.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of California, I see the biggest issue is hiring. Like, some of these locations,
really good
I think would be very tricky to hire in Scranton. I think it'd be tricky to hire in Wichita. Like that.
That's a huge point. Where are talented people residing who would be great staff for your business? One of the blessings we've got to be in here in Utah County. In Utah here is we've got several universities with and a lot of technology companies, and population is growing, and so we've got an amazing workforce here to be able to select and find great people, and we have amazing people here on our team, and that's not always the case. Some of these other locations, that's not going to be the case, and a lot of those locations in California, other people are leaving, and the cost of living is a big part, right? Yeah. So if you want to attract a lot of young talent and you're like, well, good hell, I can't afford that $800,000 house that's 1,000 square feet down the street in California. I'm going to move to Utah, or I'm going to move to Colorado, or I'm going to move to Idaho, or even, Arizona, where the cost of living is not so incredibly high and expensive. So that's a big part. So if you're starting a business and you want to start a business where there's a lot of high talent, and you can attract great people to work at your organization, you have to think about that. Is where you're living a place where talented individuals want to live? And at the end of the day, too, I think you have to say, you're going to probably lean towards hiring younger people because they're going to be, a little bit more energetic, driven, ready to roll, depending on the position, especially entry-level positions and sales positions. And if there's, not a lot of young people in your area, and there's not a lot of attractive things, and the cost of living is exorbitant and the taxes are high, I mean, that's going to be a problem. So you've got to think about, starting your business somewhere where you can have great talent, affordable cost of living, the taxes are reasonable, and there's not so much red tape that you're wasting months and months to get the business off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the talent piece is huge, and I was looking at a lot of those names on the top 10, and a lot of them do have pretty good prominent universities right there, very, very close by. And you look at some, Brigham Young University, University of Utah, and shockingly enough, call centers absolutely thrive right there. So location is very, very important based on your business, which also goes the other way. Like, if you're an e-commerce business, you do no business in the state that you're living in, everything is online. You don't have to have your business in that state. Talk to a good tax professional, talk to a good attorney. Just because you live in California doesn't mean your business has to be in California.
No question. All right, guys, time for the family segment. What you need to teach your kids about money, credit, finance. We always say this, whether we're, on a stage and event across the country, or we're talking with one of our strategic partners. We say, listen, I don't know about you, but no one taught me about credit, money, finance in school. Like, it just wasn't taught. And my oldest, just graduated from high school, finished his first year at the University of Utah. And while they can be really great at teaching engineering and calculus and all sorts of complicated stuff, they don't actually teach money, finance, credit, and they don't teach sales either, which I find very disturbing. So let's talk about some of the important things that you should be teaching your children that your school is probably not. Number one, good debt versus bad debt. Like, how would you classify good debt versus bad debt?
Good debt would be taking on debt with an educated expectation of a greater return. Bad debt would be taking on debt with no expectation of a greater return. Right? A TV. If you're going to go into debt to get a TV, that is bad debt. There's no expectation of a greater return. You're not going to charge your friends $10 an hour to come watch your TV. That's a very bad debt. A good debt, taking on debt with an educated expectation of a greater return, starting something like an Amazon business, starting a side hustle as a loan broker, right? Whatever that may be, that would be considered a good debt, in my opinion.
Now, for a lot of young kids out there, there's this big question of, well, hey, I'm going to get student loans. That's a great investment in my future. Getting that student loan is going to allow me to get that college degree and that MBA, and it's going to really pay off big time. And one of my mentors, interesting guy, again, Alex, that we've been following here, he actually was accepted into Harvard into their MBA program. And he had money saved up, and he looked at how much he was going to take out in student loans, multiple six figures. And he's like, it's going to take, 3 or 4 years, cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And afterwards, I'll have a good opportunity to get a good job somewhere. Or I can start a business, start my own gym. And I think in the next few years, I'm going to be further ahead, have no student loan debt, and be making a lot more money and get wealthy quicker. So that was the bet he made. And he left Baltimore, didn't go to Harvard, went down to California and started his first gym. And fast forward a few years later, and he's now worth $100 million. And he's learned and he's grown and he's found mentors and he's invested in himself. And he avoided all that student loan debt. And so for people looking at, well, should I go to college and get that student loan? Well, you better do your homework. I mean, even if you're going to be a doctor, like my brother went to Ohio State Medical School, but I mean, that's $300,000 unless you live there. And for a lot of people, when they get into medical school, like they have to go where they get accepted, where the best opportunity is, and the student loans are exorbitant. And so if you're not making a great return, that's something that you better consider very strongly, or I'm going to call that bad debt.
Absolutely. I don't think you should ever take out debt for your undergrad. Thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have proven that you can work while you go to school.
100%.
You can do that for your undergrad, for your bachelor's degree. Now, if you're going into, like you said, you want to become a doctor, you want to become an attorney, you've finished your undergrad and you're ready to go into more specific, whatever you want to call that, you're working on your doctorate. Yes, at that point, I can kind of see taking out a student loan to actually become a doctor, but you should never. That is a bad debt. To take out a loan to work on your undergrad that may or may not lead you anywhere, that's a bad debt.
No question. So, good debt in my mind from a personal standpoint, a mortgage is probably okay as long as you, did your homework and didn't overpay for the home. And hopefully you're in an area where there's population growth and it's very likely that the value is going to continue to increase. You didn't buy a home on a busy street. Just different things like that. And hopefully, instead of buying that really expensive home, hopefully your first homes are, homes that could be rental properties, duplexes that you can earn money on and have cash flow and interest write-offs. Those are things that a lot of people make the mistake of, well, let me buy the expensive home instead of buying other homes that can become rental properties, and they'll win the real estate game a lot quicker doing that. But in terms of credit, I feel like it's okay if people are getting mortgages for real estate investments and their home that they live in. Car loans are okay as long as you're not getting crazy expensive cars, and cars are getting more and more expensive by the day. Boy, if you want a Suburban for your family, you're going to probably get raped on that one. But those are not the worst things because you're not paying that much in interest. But all the stuff where you take out loans for other things that don't earn you any money, we're going to have to call that bad debt. But if you take out loans or financing to build a business or to even invest in yourself, and I'm not talking about a $100,000 student loan, but hey, maybe there's a $5,000 or $10,000 training program to teach you how to launch a side hustle Amazon business, or to learn how to build a finance business, or whatever it is and you're learning from someone who's actually done it. Well, when was the last time one of your professors started a business and did it successfully? Oh, probably never. And yet they're going to teach you about how business works, right?
Yeah, and Leo, case in point here, because the topic, right, is which of these things do we need to teach our kids? Because they're not going to learn in school. And I thankfully had very, very sound advice as a child. Like my parents, I remember two instances. One, I really, really wanted this pocket bike. It was like a little bullet bike for kids. It was $400 or $500, and guess what? My parents were not contributing a cent. I had to save my money, and I had to go pay that in cash. On the other hand, there was an awesome aerator, and I was renting it and aerating lawns, and making good money. But I went to my dad and said, hey, I really want to buy this. I can make way more money if I buy this, but I don't have the money. Will you give me a loan? And he actually broke it down, figured out a payback plan and everything, and my father was willing to loan me the money because it was a debt with an educated expectation of a greater return. So they wouldn't loan me the money for the pocket bike, but they would loan me the money for the aerator. I think that is a phenomenal lesson to teach your children.
I love it. No, and I've had my two oldest boys have done curb painting when they were, both turned 13 years old, and I bought them the initial $100, $200 of getting those supplies to go do curb painting and go door to door and learn sales skills and how to run a business. And they would each, usually hire a friend, whether it's their younger brother or an actual friend, to come out and help them do the business. And they both have learned great skills in doing that. My daughter just started her dance studio in our basement, and that's another opportunity. She's still in high school. She's learning about sales, marketing, accounting, good debt, bad debt, all those things that they don't teach us in school. So if you can teach them to, grow a business, that's going to be, very effective.
Like give them real life examples of good debt and bad debt, and let your children fail. Right. I can tell you there was definitely times I went into the store trying to buy this and I didn't do my math correctly and I was short a few bucks, and my mom said, well, keep saving. We'll be back here again in a few weeks. And even though it's to your parents nothing to throw a couple extra dollars on the table, but allowing your kids to fail so that they truly understand their money is going to help them learn and grow.
Absolutely. And then in terms of credit, there's kind of two sides, right? If you don't educate your child about credit and they go out and take about a bunch of credit cards out to go on vacations and trips while they're in college and waste money and buy clothes and stuff, that's a problem. But at the same time, if you don't teach them to establish credit, then by the time it comes time to buy a house, they have no credit, and they actually can't buy a house unless they have the cash to do it, which most of those kids are not going to have. And so you have to teach your kids how to establish credit, not pay interest, keep credit card balances paid down, but use them smartly. If you can teach them that, hey, if you can pay some bills with a credit card, you'll build credit. Now pay that off every month. Let's not pay any interest. Let's be disciplined with it. And then, let's get a reasonable car with a reasonable car loan, start building some credit. So when the time comes to be able to invest in real estate, to be able to buy that first house, they actually have the credit to do it. And one of the saddest things you'll see is people who have not done that, or you'll see someone who went through a bankruptcy and never established credit afterwards, and they're not going to be able to qualify until they actually start building the credit again.
What's interesting is they've actually proven that poor credit is generational. Like you hand that down to your kids who hand it down to their kids. And so if you're watching this and you're one that you have bad credit, or you don't understand credit, you don't know how your credit works, you don't know what the different credit scores are, you don't know about the 3 different bureaus, you don't know the algorithms that create your score, then do your generations that will follow you a service right now and go take care of it, because that is something that you will pass to your kids and they will pass to their kids. Like, good credit is something that it takes work. It's not, like you said, it's not going to be taught to you in school. Maybe they'll tell you what a credit score is, but they're not going to talk to you about what percent, right? Inquiries make up 10%, utilization makes up 30%. They're not going to break that down. Go figure that out for yourselves and save a lot of frustration and pain and heartache for your generations to come.
It's true. A lot of people think, oh, I made my payments on time, my credit score is perfect. And then you're like, well, that only makes up 35% of your credit. 30% of it is how you utilize credit cards and revolving credit. And if you can keep those balances, lower, then you're going to actually have a higher credit score. No one teaches us these things, and then it becomes this big shock and this big surprise, when it's time to actually qualify for something important like a house, or hopefully even better, a rental property that's going to make you some cash flow.
I hear this one all the time, Leo. Oh, I've got great credit and great history. I've been an authorized user on my wife's credit card for 10 years.
Yeah,
that's it. Well, guess what? That doesn't work anymore. Credit changes. You have to constantly stay up on it.
No question. Well, we're rolling down to the end here. Are we out of time, John? We're out of time, aren't we? Yep, we're out of time. All right, we'll have to get to the Pro Bowl, so we'll talk about football, the Pro Bowl, and, of course, make our Super Bowl picks on Friday at noon Mountain Time to 1. So look for the notification. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you ding that bell, get those notifications, subscribe to the channel, comment, give us questions, ideas for any other future topics you want us to talk about. And in addition, make sure you share the show. Share the show with other entrepreneurs, side hustlers, people who want to get their money right, who are interested in learning about credit, finance, want to take care of their family, value freedom, value entrepreneurship in this country, because it's going to solve our problems. And have yourself an amazing